The one thing that we really focus on and value is that personal approach, especially in this day and age where there's a lot of, automation, AI is becoming a huge topic. It's essentially keeping that human touch into recruitment. Every client always thinks that culture is a very big part of what they're looking for. And everyone always says, whenever I ask them, hey, how important is, because that's obviously a question you'll ask, how important is culture actually for your company? They'll always say super important. We do this, this, and this. And then whenever you ask them what their culture is and what it is that they're looking for, they a lot of the times they'll blank. We're not necessarily looking to find that unfindable candidate, especially in sales and marketing. There's so many people out there, and it's also the type of people that will reach out to companies directly. We are a remote first company ourselves. We believe highly in global hiring. So actually the type of businesses that we're looking for ourselves are usually international companies that have a hiring need globally, because it makes it even more interesting and fun, right? Because you're not only needing to be having that human intuition in regards to the position, but also have that cultural difference, etc. What marketing agencies really need right now is the same as what we need, I guess, is that human intelligence and that creativity, helping companies more on the creative side rather than that, writing a few blog posts or helping them with their social media engagement, etc. If you're looking for someone in LA, you maybe have an X amount of people, let's say 100,000 people that kind of fit that narrative of that position that you could reach out to. And all of a sudden, if they are saying, hey, you know what, we're open to hiring for different countries, it comes with a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of questions. So then it comes down to, okay, what are some non-negotiables? As a young founder of a company, basically winging it in the beginning, I was super scared to post anything on LinkedIn, right? I was scared to post anything because I might have said something dumb, whatever. We really want to help a company, especially in a scale-up phase, make sure that they lay the right foundations and understand what it is that they're looking for.
Hey, what's up, everyone? You're tuning into the Vast Track podcast, where we sit down with business leaders who are rethinking how business gets done. I'm your host, Billy Basuni, and today we're joined by Thoolen, co-founder and CEO of Orion Hiring, a values-driven recruitment firm helping scale-ups place talented candidates with an impressive 90% plus delivery rate and serving businesses across Europe and the US markets. Finn, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Billy.
Yeah, great to have you. So tell us more about, who you are, what you do, your background.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Finn. As Billy said, I'm the co-founder of Orion Hiring. So we are a recruitment agency, pretty young agency, I will say. We were founded actually last year, June. So have been working for over 1.5 years. Both me and my associate had some background in recruitment, but we didn't necessarily take it too serious yet. Then last year we were kind of talking together and just figuring out what we wanted to do. We just moved to Barcelona both, and we kind of wanted to figure out where we wanted to go. So then we sat down together and we were just looking at our prospects that we had, everything that we were doing so far. And we felt like, we wanted to build something serious. So basically Orion was born. The one thing that we really focus on and value is that personal approach, especially in this day and age where there's a lot of, automation, AI is becoming a huge topic. It's essentially keeping that human touch into recruitment. We are primarily working on sales and marketing roles. And I feel like especially in those type of roles, obviously a resume and someone's track record doesn't say everything. So we really try to focus on keeping that personal approach in whatever we do, whenever we're speaking to both clients and candidates, really keeping that human connection.
Cool. And how do you actually keep that human connection? Is it just, every meeting is, face to face with a human, with you and your team members, or are there any specific ways where you guys really emphasize on that human touch?
Yeah, good question. I think it comes down to two things. It's obviously before you even speak to someone as a recruiter, you're usually doing some outreach. I think that is one of the parts which is super automated nowadays. There's a lot of people just using automation, reaching out to people because obviously it makes sense. You can reach out to a lot more candidates. In our outreach, we try to never send any automated messages. Obviously, we make use of artificial intelligence for approaching people, but we always try to make it really personal, look at someone's profile, and really, state something that's on their profile. And then when it comes down to the conversations, we'll always have a first interview with them, which is basically just an introduction interview. We'll then send them a candidate qualification profile, which is basically something that we created as Orion Hiring, which really goes beyond the resume. So in this profile, we basically look at, for example, for a position, cultural alignment. What is it that the person is exactly looking for? But what type of person is it also? What type of competences does he have? What is their growth trajectory? So we really get that understanding of what it is that what that drives someone, and also what it is that someone kind of wants to grow into. And with that candidate qualification profile, we go and propose them to the clients that we have. So we never only send a resume. We always make sure that we have this profile filled in, that we know every in and out of this candidate that we're speaking about. So yeah, we really have that deeper understanding of what it is that people actually, that actually drives people, and what it is that they're actually looking for, rather than, hey, this guy's worked for 5 years in sales. Let's introduce them and see what happens, right?
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool. You've kind of like templatized your profiling process, right? To where any client of yours is going to get kind of a similar report, is what I imagine, for every candidate that you're recommending to them. And it seems like a proven solution, or proven process. It sounds like. Tell us more maybe about that process.
About the process of the candidate, of creating the candidate profile.
Kind of templatizing it, or creating that profile again. Like it's, um, or I guess the better question maybe, what parameters do you set for a good candidate? Let's ask that question.
Well, I think that's a very good question. That really comes down to the type of position we're recruiting for, obviously. I will say we are a pretty boutique firm, right? So we don't have 50 clients that we can mix and match and get a candidate in and be like, oh, this is a perfect match. So what we'll usually do whenever we work together with a new client, we'll usually start and create a personalized candidate qualification profile for every position that we're recruiting for. So that means, let's say we're looking for a senior demand manager, or we're looking for a senior account executive. We'll sit with the company. We'll ask them, hey, what is it that you're specifically looking for outside of the vacancy text? So outside of that 5 years experience, knows how to generate pipeline, etc. What is it that you're really looking for in a candidate? And usually we'll go off of that whenever we're speaking to candidates. So we'll first let them specifically fill in the candidate qualification profile for one position, and then we'll kind of generalize their profile for any future outreach that we're doing. So let's say, we propose them. It's then the first position that they're that we're matching them with is in the end not the right fit. We'll still keep that profile on hand and kind of generalize it a little bit more, so that whenever we're speaking to new companies, they don't have to, fill that in again. But it always starts on the client side. So we always work out that profile specifically for a position that we're recruiting for. And then to answer your question, what makes a good candidate? Well, I think that entirely depends on the company, right? Some companies want that super self-starter. Other companies value someone that, wants to come into the office 5 days a week. It really depends on the company. So, yeah, I think everyone is a great candidate for one position somewhere. It just depends
Right.
on
You're
the
kind
position.
of the recruiting, world is kind of a matchmaking industry, isn't it? Like you're
It is.
really trying to make it fit. Yeah. You touch on culture too. How big is culture in, like culture fit in a client's request to match a good candidate for their, for their company?
I think, without sounding too harsh, every client always thinks that culture is a very big part of what they're looking for. And
Hmm.
everyone always says, whenever I ask them, hey, how important is, because that's obviously a question you'll ask, how important is culture actually for your company? They'll always say super important. We do this, this, and this. And then whenever you ask them what their culture is and what it is that they're looking for, they kind of, a lot of the times they'll blank. So I think, and even us as a company, right? We obviously also, because we value culture a lot, we also, have this sense of culture, but how you really translate that to things that you can measure, and but to
Just a kind
basically,
of like a standardized format, right, of a profile.
yeah,
Yeah.
to basically do that, sometimes it can prove very difficult. So I think it's also from our end, as being recruiters, it is also one of our jobs to really kind of read between the lines and kind of understand what it is that they're looking for, and basically without saying, hey, company X is looking for someone that's a self-starter, basically rephrase the questions that we're doing to the candidates to be like, hey, what do you value more, a good training, or being able to start yourself, and then kind of seeing how that translates to the profile.
Right. Sounds like you guys know what you're doing. So that's cool. Tell us more about why sales and marketing. Why that niche specifically?
Well, to be very frank with you, we've tried different industries when we started, also because we were pretty young. We didn't necessarily know what we were doing back then. I feel like we definitely know what we're doing now, but when we just started, we were also kind of winging it, right? Both me and my associates have a background in both finance and sales, so to me, sales naturally came pretty naturally. And then what we saw is that the way that we do recruitment, I feel like we're not necessarily looking to find that unfindable candidate, especially in sales and marketing.
Mm,
There's so many people out there, and it's also the type of people that will reach out to companies directly, right? If you're looking at IT, for example, those people tend to be a little bit more cautious when reaching out to companies. They won't pick up the phones themselves. So a lot of the times, whenever we're speaking to a company first, they'll say, "Oh, but we have plenty of candidates coming in," right? Oh, we don't have a problem with recruiting. But then the fun thing about sales and marketing is that cultural touch and that human approach that people need, is valued a lot more, because in the end you can have a specific track record as sales, but it's far more about what type of person it is, and how far they fit to the company and the type of prospects that they need to be talking to. So I think the way that we believe recruitment works, which is not finding that unfindable candidate, but really providing that human insight in what, basically being that matchmaker, like you said, right? Understanding without them saying, hey, this is what we need and this is what we want, kind of understanding what that match is. That human, um, how do I phrase this? That human intuition
like, hmm
is something that's really really much needed in sales and marketing, and that's where we kind of drive value, I think, and where we kind of thrive as a recruitment company.
Yeah, you've capitalized on that. That's a great point. I think you guys have a good foundation, or at least from just talking to you, right? And it's to be able to solve these problems in the sales and marketing world, where it's beyond just what's good on paper, right? Let's talk about some of the businesses that you've served. What you don't have to share as much as you like. But, what's some businesses that you've been able to that you've been able to serve? What kind of industries that have reached out to you guys?
Yeah, good question. I think for us, the industries that we're primarily serving currently actually is almost all marketing agencies, in specific forms. So we are a remote first company ourselves. We believe highly in global hiring. So actually, the type of businesses that we're looking for ourselves are usually international companies that have a hiring need globally, because it makes it even more interesting and fun, right? Because you're not only needing to be having that human intuition in regards to the position, but also have that cultural difference, etc. So a big client of ours is a marketing agency in Los Angeles. They basically help influencers with brands, etc. We've placed a ton of different types of candidates for them. We've also recruited in Europe for a lot of marketing agencies where it's more of the creative marketing. But yeah, I would say our biggest clientele right now is definitely marketing agencies. We just see that they are primarily struggling to really get those more senior candidates coming in at this point in time, especially with the whole industry changing so much, obviously.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean the industry's changing so much?
Well, I think with AI,
Mm,
a lot of marketing agencies, especially the marketing agencies that were super focused on SEO, for example, are kind of struggling, because a lot of companies currently kind of want to test the whole AI thing out and see where that leads them. And they
right.
start losing faith in that original, well, the original value that marketing agencies were delivering, right? And
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're looking at SEO, obviously we're not entirely there yet, but AI is being able to take over a lot more of that general work. So I think that what marketing agencies really need right now is almost the same as what we need, I guess, is that human intelligence and that creativity, helping companies more on the creative side rather than that, writing a few blog posts or make helping them with their social media engagement, etc. That's just, yeah, it's definitely shifting also what it is that they're looking for in people.
It definitely is, right? I mean, just on our day-to-day basis, we're really starting to question, hey, was that video AI or was this AI? And that human touch, you're right. We're kind of missing it. And I think I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but at some point, there's going to be a need for, like you mentioned, the human touch or just like human to human connection. And we're just in the early phases of AI. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see where it goes. Where are you able to source these more senior candidates or like, just candidates in general? Are you seeing um, more success in a certain area or all over the place?
I think when we're looking at tech stack, we primarily use LinkedIn Recruiter. I think LinkedIn is still obviously the main job platform. Especially we also work on Indeed, for example, but I feel like every company can post a job post and get candidates from there. So as a recruiter, you're usually more on the outbound side. So when you're talking areas, we really, I think 90-ish% of the time rely on LinkedIn Recruiter. And then we do also work with some email campaigns. We do also do some cold calling sometimes to candidates, although I think time effort wise, usually that's not the best course of action.
But do you find these candidates, are they, let's say we're talking about that marketing agency in Los Angeles. Are you looking for folks that are that are local to that company in LA, or are you just looking kind of almost anywhere and everywhere?
Well, that is a conversation that's been continuously going on. So take that marketing agency, for example, super fun. They're a 100% remote company themselves.
Mm,
So they are basically able to hire worldwide. They do see that for some roles, right? Especially, well, LA, right? A lot of the time, if you want to get interaction in LA has a different type of people. They really value the people that come from LA. So sometimes they'll be, if they're looking for someone that has a very commercial role that needs to be talking to a lot of people and brands in LA, they'll look for someone that's centralized in LA. But they also do a lot of outsourcing to different countries. And um, basically, that is also something that we as Orion Hiring really want to grow into. Basically, our end goal with Orion Hiring would be to become that one-stop shop for both companies and candidates internationally that want to either relocate or connect to different companies worldwide. So, with that being said, we are actively looking to collaborate with companies that have that kind of hiring problem where they are wanting to outsource to different countries, but are maybe either a little bit afraid or don't necessarily have the knowledge as to how to find these candidates. But it really depends. Some companies will say, no, we need someone in office 5 days a week. Well, as a recruiter, we cannot really say anything except, okay, fine, we'll find them. But we are actively talking to a lot of our clients and being like, hey, for these positions, aren't you able to outsource it because X, Y, Z?
mm-hmm. And have you guys already helped some clients uh, to place uh, not candidates, but positions that are um, from candidates from outside, like that international candidates? Have you assisted that already? And what's your
Yes.
experience in there? Yeah.
Honestly, it's super fun because when you're all of a sudden the whole perspective changes, right? When you're looking for, let's take that LA person for example, right? If you're looking for someone in LA, you maybe have an X amount of people, let's say 100,000 people that kind of fit that narrative of that position that you could reach out to, and all
Hmm.
of a sudden, if they are saying, hey, you know what, we're open to hiring for different countries, it comes with a lot of opportunity, but also a lot of questions. So then it comes down to, okay, what are some non-negotiables? For example, obviously they want someone that's able to speak English well. Well, nowadays that's a huge part of the world, obviously. It always comes down to, and this is, I think, the root of what we usually see when we're hiring abroad is the trade-off with salary versus skills. So in how far are people with a lower salary able to meet that same expectation as people that can literally have the connections in Los Angeles themselves, for example. So I think that the main thing which makes it super interesting is that you have all these other types of questions that all of a sudden come across above the table, where it's like, hey, we're not only looking for this experience, but also are they even able to go on a contract with us? What is their salary like? Is their English even good enough? Right. So
Right.
yeah, it becomes a whole different game.
And then what about like, the documentation, like all the other paperwork that goes into, hiring someone that lives in a different country?
Currently, we really rely on partners. We have some partners in Europe that are basically helping us. I think they're able to hire people in 180 something countries. So basically,
Cool.
whenever we need someone being hired for a company, we always match them together. But a lot of the times, also, I think we are at the early stages in that sense of companies really changing their hiring strategies to abroad. So most of the companies that we're hiring for abroad usually are already in some sense hiring abroad. So they'll already have that part figured out themselves, which obviously makes it easier
Mm-hmm.
for us
Right,
because
right.
it's 10 times harder to convince a company that's always hired in their own area, maybe country
Yeah.
area, to then
Hmm.
say, hey, you know what? You should be looking at Brazil for this because XYZ.
Right, right. I mean, that's a huge opportunity, right? Because I'm sure, with senior positions or certain positions that require a more a higher skill set, it's going to be pretty expensive, right? Let's just talk about the U.S. market, for example, right? But then if you're able to source someone who meets all those requirements, like can speak English, has the skill sets, can do X, Y, Z, like you mentioned, and for a lower cost, then it's almost a no brainer. But there are challenges, like you said, to hurdles to overcome to be able to bring them on board. So it sounds like you guys have the partnership with another company to be able to resolve that, though. So that's really cool. Um, I had a question actually. What would be the main difference? And then maybe this is a dumb question because I feel like I'm already answering in my head. But what would be the main difference between someone who wants to hire a VA versus someone who hires a candidate through from abroad? Is it just the fact that a VA would be more of a contractor, and then a full-time position would be an FTE employee?
If you're talking about a VA, for example, it really depends on the position again, but I feel
Mm,
like the main difference is that they will a lot of the time work on a contractor base. Yeah, that's obviously the easiest thing because they then eventually you're putting all the responsibilities on the candidate side instead of on
right,
the company side. But candidates
right,
must be willing to do that. But usually, whenever you're hiring in a different country, the candidates know better what their exact necessities are in the sense of documentation, etc.
right. Cool. Let's move on to what the next step. What's next for Orion Hiring? Where are you guys trying to be? Where are you guys trying to go? I know you guys are still a very early company, but seeing a lot of success. What's the future plans of business for you guys?
I think if we're looking at the next year or so, for us, it's becoming more stable. I think every recruiter that I speak to, every recruitment company knows that it's always recruitment. We work a lot on a no cure, no pay placement base. So basically, we get paid whenever a candidate gets placed. So a lot of the times, you'll see January, February going this, and then March going this, and then having that cash flow just being all over the place. So for us, I think stability in regards of cash flow is a huge thing. A second thing is, and that's something that we're right now very much focused on, is really making that Orion Hiring brand be something unique and not be one of the 2 million recruiters that says, hey, we look at people beyond a resume and we want to take a personal approach, but really translating that and showing to the world that it is actually something that we do and how we do it. I feel like that's also something that we're still working on. We're constantly working on that. Like, how do you position yourself as a brand to really showcase to the world that what you're doing is actually what you're doing. Yeah,
So, and how are you guys tackling those challenges?
it's a work in progress. I think that one of the things is obviously visibility and just putting yourself out there. I was as a young founder of a company, basically winging it in the beginning. I was super scared to post anything on LinkedIn. Right, I was scared to
Mm,
post anything because it might have upset people. I might have said something dumb, whatever. So I think the first part is just basically going on a podcast, talking to someone, and basically saying what it is that you actually believe in. Showcasing that self. And then the second part is obviously your branding, just looking at what it is that you put out to the world, what your company looks like, what your website looks like. All those small little things obviously add to the picture that you showcase to the rest of the world.
yeah, I mean, part of entrepreneurship is really it's like building a plane while you're trying to fly it, right? Like, 'cause
Yeah,
you're just
yeah.
kind of figuring it out as you go, and you're hoping that you're holding on for dear life, hoping you'll stay afloat, right? And so, I mean, I know you guys have just like I think you mentioned that you've just built a website. And I think the website looks great. So yeah, I think you're steps ahead of everyone. A lot of other people who are trying to stay afloat and get their wings up and ready. So yeah, any I guess what anything else that the audience might find valuable from hearing you out today. This is a platform for you to showcase what Orion Hiring does and the values that you guys provide to potential prospects out there. Um, any messages to the audience?
I think that one thing we didn't really touch on, which is something that I think is super important, especially in the industry that we're in and, the global hiring that we're doing, is our data-driven approach. So this is basically to anyone listening that's currently looking at a situation that they're in where they're not 100% sure what their hiring strategy should be. Anytime before we even start collaborating with any type of company, what we'll always do is we'll sit down with the company and basically look at what it is that what their recruitment needs are, what it is that they're looking for, and we'll always first of all map out the entire audience pool. So how many candidates are in this pool that you're looking for? What type of skills do you need to find these candidates in? What are your main competitors doing? So we basically have a very data-driven approach before we go on to that, personalized human type of touch. So, if there's any company listening today that's or an HR manager or whatever, that doesn't really know what it is that they're looking for or doesn't really know what the market is that they're looking in, give us a shout and we'll be able to have a chat with you and basically do that before we even start collaborating on anything in the future.
So you really walk them through that whole stop from the beginning, the whole process from the beginning. They have a position that they need filled, but they don't really know how to do it, and you give them these data driven tools or trends or data points to be able to help them determine, first of all, okay, this is the type of ICP or ideal customer profile that you are targeting, and then from there that you also assist with helping them fill that position. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that's a very good yeah, for sure. I think we in the end, us as Orion being that small boutique firm, we really want to be more than just a recruiter. We really want to be a hiring partner. Might
Hmm.
sound a little bit tacky, but I think that in the end it is something that we really believe in, that we don't only want to be, we don't want to only find that candidate. We really want to help a company, especially in a scale up phase, make sure that they lay the right foundations and understand what it is that they're looking for so they hopefully at a later point in time don't even really need us because they have that knowledge and experience in what it is that they should be looking for and how they should approach their whole hiring strategy.
I mean, it's super important, right? Like a business is really nothing but its people. Really, I don't know the exact saying, but it really makes up a company. Really is made up of its people, right? And it's really important, especially when you're just laying out the foundations and trying to ramp things up, scale the business up. In those early days is when it's really important, right? Really critical and really crucial. So sounds like having someone like you guys, not really only as a vendor, right? Not only as a contractor or recruiting company, but as a partner, to help build that is almost critical as well. For lack of better words. Great. I mean, kind of, to be frank, out of questions for you here, Finn. So let me know if is there any last thoughts here before we close up shop?
No, I mean, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated the ability to have a chat with you and just showcase a little bit more about what we do. So thanks a lot. And yeah, no, that's it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thanks as well. I had a great time chatting with you. For those who want to reach out to you, to Orion Hiring, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, like I said, we're always on LinkedIn, so I think the easiest thing is to give me a chat on LinkedIn. I'll respond within within a few seconds probably because it's open 24/7. So for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll get your contact information. I'll make sure I'll link it in the description below as well, so that everyone can just click on it and get a hold of you. But in the meantime, Finn, thanks again for joining us, and hope to see you soon.
All right, thank you so much as well, Billy. Take care.
Cheers.